All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all, and welcome back to the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. The X Zone, as you well know by now, is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight. Like I said, right here from our home studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed worldwide, and probably way out there as well, on classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is Peter Sterling. He is an award-winning harpist who began to play after a series of life-changing angelic encounters in the canyons of Sedona in the early 1900s. 1990s, 1900s. My God, I'm aging the poor guy. His heartfelt and celestial harp music has touched the hearts and souls of people worldwide, with many listeners reporting beautiful visions and even miraculous healings while listening to Peter's heavenly music. His website, harpmagic.com. And Peter, I aged you. How
you
are you?
Certainly did. Some people would say that I'm an old soul, so perhaps you were tapping into a past memory.
Oh, how are you, Peter, my friend?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to say it's wonderful to be here again with you, and I wanted to wish you and everybody there at the X Zone a Happy New Year.
Why, thank you. The same to you, my friend. How are things in Sedona?
Things are beautiful here. No complaints. Loving it. It's a beautiful place. It's a magical landscape, and everywhere I look, I'm inspired by the beauty here. So I feel pretty blessed and lucky to live here.
Why is Sedona so magical, and why does it attract the people who, like yourself, are very spiritual, or who have had spiritual encounters, angelic encounters, ET sightings, and so much?
Oh, yeah.
Why is it kind of a mecca?
Well, for one, the landscape is very unique and incredibly beautiful and majestic and powerful and ancient. So just the scenery itself is breathtaking, like very unique and like nothing else in the world. Certainly one of the most beautiful places to see. But as far as the energy, what makes Sedona special is that this is a planetary vortex here. There are strong electromagnetic fields here in Sedona, and this has actually been researched and verified by the government, by the U.S. Geological Survey that surveyed all of North America, measuring the magnetic field. And you could go to usgs.gov website and review the magnetic field line maps that they created by aircraft flying at low altitudes with a magnetometer. And generally the Earth's magnetic field is relatively consistent, but there are places where there's unusual magnetic fields with spikes and dips in the magnetic field. These are called magnetic anomalies. And the magnetic field line maps reveal that the Sedona region and the red rocks and the landscape here has the highest amount of magnetic anomalies in all of North America are here in Sedona. And what creates that? So there's quite a lot of different ingredients in the mix here. You can also, if you go to usgs.gov, you can also look at the geologic maps, the geology maps, and you can see the different strata of the rock. And underneath Sedona is, for one, there's a large aquifer. Sedona sits over the largest aquifer in the southwest United States, flows directly underneath Sedona in the Verde Valley here. And that's an underground river. So we have a lot of water here, a lot of artesian springs, a lot of places in Sedona and in the Verde Valley where beautiful fresh spring water just bubbles right out of the ground, and you can fill your bottle and drink it right there from the source. It's amazing. So we have incredible water, and then underneath that is, of course, limestone, and then layers of quartz. So and then we also have, the red rocks are red because of high iron content, and iron's electromagnetic, and we have iron in our body, of course, in the blood, and so there's a strong kind of alchemical mix of the different elements, and there's deep primal earth energies that radiate up from deep under the ground and come up through these different rock formations that are known as the vortexes of Sedona. And there's 4 main vortexes in Sedona: Cathedral Rock, Bell Rock, Airport Mesa, and Boynton Canyon. And they all have different energetic qualities. So what's kind of fun to do is you come here and you go to the different vortex areas, and you climb up and you sit there and meditate and lay on the rock and feel the energy and receive. There's really nothing you have to do. You just go there and relax, and then it's people come from all over the world, Rob, to have this experience. I have a tour company here, so I've been a guide here for on and off for over 30 years, and I work with a lot of clients from all over the world for many years, and many people have just really powerful experiences here, and there's an energy, there's a palpable energy field here. And it's through that energy field in these vortex sites they're believed, and I've had my own experiences here, that they are portals that give you access into other dimensions, and you can tap into that. You can connect into it, and you can enter into it with your consciousness, with your astral body, your non-local consciousness. There's different words, different parts that you can interface with it and explore in your mind, in your spirit. And some people even with their physical body go in and out of these things. So there's a lot of incredible things. We have a lot of sightings here. I've seen a lot of kind of UFO ship sightings here for many, many years. Very unusual phenomena here. I'm a sky watcher, so I have my own pair of night vision goggles that I can see, and it's very popular here. We have UFO tours here, go out just about every night here in Sedona now. So there's a lot of people here that are interacting with these higher intelligence, with these galactic beings, ET energies. So a lot of people calling them in, and we see them all the time because they like to come here, because they know that people here are open. People here are open, are seeing. So it's a pretty magical place.
Tell us about your life-changing angelic encounters that you've had.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just saying, the vortexes of Sedona, the beauty. This is what drew me here. It's, through synchronicity and divine appointment almost 35 years ago. And so I came here by myself, and I was so struck by the beauty of the place and the energy. And I just was guided by my inner guidance to explore all the different vortex sites in the ancient canyons here. So I would often just hike by myself and go way out into the wilderness, into these ancient canyons, and climb up, the cliffs into the ancient ruins. There's ruins that are over 1,000 years old, hundreds of them all over the place here, where you can climb up and find, pottery shards and arrowheads and old corn cobs and different kind of things that are there. And there's just an ancient memory here. It's incredible to just go up there and to sit and it's so still and in the canyons, Rob. So I would just go and immerse myself in the stillness and in this ancient presence in these beautiful canyons here, and sit in the silence in these vortexes, and you can feel it. It's just your whole body can begin to vibrate, and then if you're sensitive enough, you can start to hear, like I did, and many people, there's a high-pitched ringing out here. The rocks, it's called the ringing rocks because they're full of all these elemental energies and rare earth minerals and all of these different factors that everything is vibrating, and you can really you can see it and you can feel it. And so when you come into resonance with that, the energy here, the electromagnetic fields, it alters your brainwave state. There's research that showed that our brainwave state entrains with the Earth's magnetic field. So, but Sedona has these unusual magnetic fields, spikes and dips. So if there's a spike, that's known as an electrical vortex, where the energy is moving up and out. Like, so let's say your chakra system, it's moving up from the root up through the top of your head, and the energy, you can become a conduit. So when you go to the sites where it's electric, if you sit there and just open up, that the energy can move up through you, and you can travel on that. You can project onto it. So many stories of people doing this. And then that we have the magnetic vortex, where it's just deeply, grounding magnetic to the earth. It's like a feminine energy. So the electrical one's moving up, it's masculine, electric. The magnetic is the feminine energy. So you go to the different sites and you just relax and open up your energy field, and it changes your brainwave state. And when you change your brainwave state, that changes your perceptions, not only of your external reality, but also of yourself. So that's why when people come here, Rob, it's like they come out and they just lay and open up into this rarefied energy here, these strong magnetic fields, and all of a sudden they start to see things differently, and they remember who they are. I always say Sedona is a place of remembrance. And so that's what I did. I came into the canyon, sat in these fields in the silence, and just started listening, what I call listening to silence. And it was so exquisite, it still is. I take people out all the time just to listen to the silence. And within that silence, then there's this glorious sound that you can tap into. But you have to become very, very still and quiet and just really drop in to your center point within yourself. And then you allow your energy field to expand. This is what I did. And then by doing that, I began to hear music. And it just kind of opened up. All of a sudden, I heard like subtle strains of some sort of symphonic music. I thought somebody was there with a portable stereo out in the forest playing, and I caught a hint of it floating on the wind, But no, I realized that I was tapping in to something mystical and of a divine origin. I was aware of the masters who speak in different spiritual traditions, speak of the inner light and sound. So all of a sudden I was having my own direct experience with it. And by tapping into it, then tapping into the sound current and seeing the light in my mind's eye, my upper chakras opened up, and I just went right out the top of my head, and I was taken up into the light. And it was there where I heard the music, and the angels appeared to me. And my life changed forever in that moment.
All right, you and I have to take a commercial break here. Peter, please stand by. Exonation. Peter Sterling is my special guest this hour. His website is harpmagic.com. And this is the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on Classic 1220, your hometown radio, and around the world on classic1220.ca. Peter Sterling is our guest, and we're going to go to the commercial break with one of Peter's tracks, and this is entitled Transmission 333. Welcome back, everyone. Peter Sterling is my guest this hour. He is an award-winning harpist who began to play after a series of life-changing angelic encounters in the canyons of Sedona. What kind of angelic encounters were they? Just was it just the music that you heard, or did you actually have a one-on-one encounter with angels?
I had one-on-one encounters with the angels. I just wanted to say that at this time of my life, I was really deeply into my shamanic journey to discover my soul's mission, my soul's purpose here. So I was using anything at my disposal to expand my consciousness. And I really went into the shamanic psychedelic realms and experimented with a lot of different mind expanding hallucinogens. And back in those days, they were very much illegal, but now they're becoming legal, and we have science that shows that these different things can really, produce profound effect on the consciousness and on the mind and on the soul. So the main thing I was doing that was really trippy back then was working with ketamine in the flotation tank. I was very much inspired by the work of Dr. John Lilly, who developed the isolation tank, the samadhi tank, the flotation tank, and had met him on several occasions. And the opportunity to try that with ketamine just blew my mind. The first experience, I just went way, way out in the universe. And so I was experimenting with this at the time, along with my spiritual practices of yoga, meditation, and breath work, and pranayama, and qigong, and tai chi, and all of these things. And but really using all of these things in an alchemy that just really opened a doorway in my consciousness. My grandmother, in my book called Hearing the Angels Sing, I tell about my grandmother, my Irish grandmother on my mother's side, and she was she was a mystic and one of my caretakers growing up, and she was planting seeds in my awareness ever since I was a young child. And as I got older, I discovered that she was very much involved with Eckankar, which is the ancient science of soul travel. And she was a very high initiate, and she was able to leave her body and travel up into the higher planes, into the higher spiritual planes, and go to temples of learning with other souls and kind of receive teachings from kind of like ascended master types of teachers in these temples of golden of wisdom on these higher planes. And she would tell me she would hear music in her ear all the time, and she said she could hear the angels singing to her. I was fascinated by this as a young child growing up, and then as a teenager, when I started going through the change at about 14, becoming a man, I became more curious, and that's when she started giving me the books and the manuals that she had with the techniques of soul travel. And this is all about connecting in with the inner light and sound, and specific techniques to do that, and a specific like mantra tone called the hue, which is the main sound that Ekkas used to travel to the higher spiritual planes. It's a beautiful sound, and sounds like this, hue, right? So I learned this at a young age, and then when I was in the canyon to do all these things, I would just connect with the hue, and that just opened me up. And then I heard the music of the angels. And then, when as I said, I was working with ketamine in the float tank. So at the time, my perception of reality, I was very fluid. It was like I had one foot in this world and one foot in the higher planes, maybe like the fifth dimension. I was kind of going back and forth. It was very intense, it was very magical, but I was really exploring these higher dimensions. And I was living in my Volkswagen van at the time. For 3 years, I lived in my van and slept in the forest and just practiced these techniques and immersed in the nature and the silence there. So as I said, I was taken up into the light, and I could hear the sound, and I could see around me, Rob, that I could see some faint forms in my inner vision and in the light, in the golden light. And as I adjusted my focus, all of a sudden it came into focus, and I could see that I was surrounded by a group of cherub angels, and they were playing harps and flutes and violins, just like we see depicted in the classical Renaissance art, like in the Sistine Chapel of the cherubs. and they're these amazing beings. So there they were, and it just blew my mind. I couldn't believe barely what I was seeing. I thought maybe I was making it up. I tried to clear my mind, but shake my head, but no, they were there, and they were looking right at me. And then I discovered that I could hear what they were saying to one another. And, because I was attuned to the music, I could hear it. All of a sudden I could hear their conversation. They were like, "Hey, look at him. Do you think he can see us?" And I don't know. They were going back and forth. "Do you think he can see us?" And all of a sudden in my mind, I could hear them. And I said to them in my mind, "I can see you." And they could hear me. I said, "I can hear you. I can see you." And they said, can you hear me and see me?" And they said, "Yes." And so we discovered that we had this channel of communication open. And as soon as they realized that, they got very, very excited, and they started kind of flying all over the place. They're very happy about this, because apparently it's not every day where angels make communication with a mortal human. But this is how it unfolded. And then once we discovered, we could communicate, then that's when the journey started. And then I went on several journeys with them, Rob. It was real magical. As I said, I was using ketamine. So when I would administer ketamine to myself, I'd lay back, I'd go out of my body, and there they would be waiting for me every time. They'd be waiting for me there. And they take me on all these incredible journeys and show me all these things. And I write about it in great detail in my book, Hearing the Angels Sing. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, they took me to the source of the music that I was hearing. And so I'm flying with them, Rob. It was the most extraordinary feeling, flying with these angels. I was in my astral kind of causal body, and two cherubs picked me up, when I first went with them. They said, "Come, we want to show you." And they picked me up under the arms, and I started flying with them, two of them. And when I got the hang of it, they just kind of let go, and I could just go along right with them. I turned back, and I didn't have feet, but I had like fairy dust kind of trailing off of me. Super magical experience.
So this was basically an out-of-body experience.
Totally out-of-body experience.
Now, is it possible that these angels were a result of the your use of ketamine, and that there weren't really any angels there except in your mind, which produced them?
Well, I wondered that myself. I was wondering if I was making this all up.
Yeah.
But see, as I write in my book, is that the angels assured me, they reassured me, and they created like magical synchronicities to show me that it was really happening. It was real happening. One of the most magical ones that I write about, I was living in my van, sleeping in the forest. One night I just went out into the forest by myself and put down pitched a tent out in the canyons, and and I got up in the morning. I did it at night. I got up in the morning. I was all by myself. It was totally quiet, just some soft bird song in the morning sun. And I get up, I unzip my tent, and there's nobody around. And I look down in my bare feet in the sand, and there's something shiny there. And I reach down and pick it up, and it's a pendant, a silver little pendant of a cherub angel playing a harp.
Okay.
It just blew me away out in the middle of nowhere. I still have that as a little memento, but all sorts of things would happen to reassure me. So it's a good question. Now it's been 35 years, and so much has happened that it's just inexplicable.
Do you still see the cherubs? Oh,
I do not so much like I did in the past. In the past, when I was having all these experiences, I was very open. But life changes. I'm a father now. I had to get very grounded after that. Once I discovered what my mission was, and I only did the what we call the K, a few times. Yeah. It opened a window to me, and I didn't need it after that, and still don't. It's been probably 25 years since I did it, right. But now it's legal. We have walk-in clinics in every major city in America. You can walk in, and they'll hook you up to an IV of ketamine, and you can go on a trip, for a few hours, and it's just amazing. And people are having these experiences. It's actually quite common That's, ketamine, for those who don't know, it's a general anesthesia, and it was used extensively. It's the safest anesthesia, and still used to this day, primarily on animals and maybe young children.
Large
My son,
animals, horses and elephants.
yeah, and they gave some to my 12-year-old son recently when he had a tooth extracted. They knocked him out with ketamine. But what would happen was they'd come back from these experiences and tell the doctor that they saw Jesus, or they saw a UFO, or they saw angels and were out of their body. And, apparently that was a little bit too much for the doctors mainstream to deal with that. So, it's not used as much like that, and used now in combination with other things. But it is, when it's done in a sub threshold, there's a lot of research about this, especially Russia was much more advanced for decades of us with the use of ketamine for psychotherapeutic reasons. But there's a lot of research on it. So, just go and check it out. But back to my question, I question whether or not I was making it all up, but so much happened. And then just to bring this section to a close before we have to go, what ultimately happened, Rob, was that, from these experiences, the angels told me that my mission that I was asking to be revealed to me was to play the harp and to be a channel for the heavenly music of which I was hearing, that God had chosen me to do this. Like, this was pre-planned. It wasn't just random. This was my destiny. And so the angel said, if you decide to work with us, we will teach you how to play, and together we'll work as a team to bring special music, heavenly music, to earth at this time of the Great Awakening, of the dawning of the Golden Age, of the Ascension. There's many names for it, of the Great Shift of the ages,
Right.
Because music and frequency plays a very important role. So this is like, my music is like Golden Age music, and it always has the angels in it. The angelic essence and sounds and choirs are in almost everything I do. And they told me this, and once I realized that it was real, I finally said, yes, I'll do it. And within a week, I met somebody who had a small little harp, very synchronistic. I write about it in my book, a little harp. And I purchased this little harp, and I took it out into the forest by myself and just put my hands to the strings, and my hands began to move by themselves. And as this would happen, I'd break out in an intense sweat, and my eyes would start to tear profusely, and my hands would tremble. The energy was so intense. I later learned that this angel would kind of overshadow me and send an energy that I could pick up in my nervous system, like channeling. And I would sometimes look at my hands, and they would be moving completely by themselves. And it was powerful. It was scary. It was terrifying at one point, but at the same time, it was so blissful and full of love
Peter?
and light. Amazing.
Peter,
Yeah.
I've got to take my break. Please stand by.
Sure.
Exonation Peter Sterling is our guest this hour. His website is harpmagic.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca.
Old man, look at my life. I'm a lot like you were. Old man, look at my life. I'm a lot like you were.
Came into town as a man of renown, a writer of songs about freedom and joy. The hall had been rented and I was presented as a kind of a singer that all could enjoy.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. Our guest is Peter Sterling. His website is harpmagic.com. And Peter, so you came across this person who was selling this harp. You took it into the woods. You put your hands on it, and you started playing. Yes. And had you ever played a musical instrument before?
I was fooling around with the guitar a little bit, before for a few months, learning a few chords here and there. As a young child, I played the piano spontaneously by ears at about 6 years old. Uh, and I was searching for I felt music most of my life, like
Right.
many of us do, and I was searching for my instrument. It wasn't until the harp came into my life where it was like, yes, this is what I had been looking for. There was a pivotal moment, the harp came, and then it started to happen. It was around my birthday. I went on a hike one day, and back into the canyons, into Boynton Canyon, and I climbed up on this ridge with my harp, and I held it to the sky, and it was there where I said that I opened myself up to be a vessel to receive this music, and that I said, yes, I will join with you. And that's when things really started to accelerate, and that my hands really, the music just started to come through very quickly. And basically, long story short, 10 months later, without any formal lessons, I was guided by the angels to go into the recording studio and record the little melodies that were coming through, which I did. And I followed their guidance step by step. And that's how I created my first recording, my first album called Harp Magic, which this is the 30th anniversary year. 2023 was. And the way it came, like, this is, kind of verification. I love telling this story. I don't talk about the psychedelics and the ketamine that much in the public. Some people are interested. I figured the X Zone is ready for that kind of information. But what happened was I made my first cassette tape, my first album called Harp Magic, and it started to sell in the New Age bookstores here in Sedona. And just like the angels said was going to happen, it really started to happen quickly for me. And so I said a prayer to the angels. I said, look, if you want your music to go out to the world, send me some help, because I really don't know anything about the music business. I don't know how to get distribution or things like that. So I said this very intent prayer, and let it go. And about a week later, I got a telephone call where I happened to be staying at the time. And it turned out it was some record company executives that were on a holiday here in Sedona. And they wandered into a New Age bookstore where they were selling my cassette tape. This was in 1993. And they inquired about it. Turned out they were looking for a harpist for their record label. They heard my music in the bookstore. They asked about it. The bookstore person gave them my number. They called me up and they said, hey, we love your music. What's your story? And I told them, basically how the angels gave it to me. And they said, well, we're here to help you bring your music to the world. We love it. And what resulted was a 5-album record deal with worldwide distribution for my music. And they took I just about fell off my chair. I couldn't believe it, how quickly the angels sent this. I didn't even have to look for it. I just told the angels, send me some help. And then I get a call with a record label wanting to sign me. It's unheard of, basically, that type of thing. So it was super magical. And I ended up, giving them my original recording. They pressed a CD. They started sending it out through their distribution channels, and it started going all over the world, to Canada and South America and Asia, et cetera, and Europe. Just like the angels said it was going to happen. It was just a miraculous how it manifested so quickly.
Peter, why do you think the angels picked you?
Well, I think because I come from a lineage of soul travelers, through my grandmother, and, like my great-great-grandfather was a 33rd degree Mason on my other side of the family. So I have kind of like mysticism in both family lines on my mother and father. So it's kind of in my ancestry, in my lineage. But also, as I've been on the journey with the harp, because I play improvisation, I'm self-taught. I really just play what I hear and what I feel in my heart, and I really don't know any music theory. It just happens magically for me. every time I sit at the harp, it unfolds like a magical journey. So now over, 30 years of this, and 16 albums, all of my songs are like a chapter in a book. And a lot of it is just the story of my own soul, because when I play, there's images and imagery that comes into the imagination. That's what's magical about my music, and the way the angels taught me how to record it and compose it and how to create it by infusing it. So my music is like it's holographic, basically. So if you close your eyes and listen to my music, it will create beautiful images in your mind's eye, in your imagination. And when it goes to the ethereal angelic part, it really takes you up into the clouds, up into the light. It's very healing. I mean, it's the miracle stories of people, testimonials of listening to my music from all over the world.
Peter, we're playing a bit of a track that you did called Emerald Forest. Let our listeners give a listen.
Sure.
X-Zone Nation, that's Peter Sterling's The Emerald Forest, and you're listening to the X-Zone right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220. Peter, what's this song about? What was your inspiration? What's your story behind it?
This comes from my album called Harp, Patterns of Reflection, which I released in 2012. This was my 2012 offering at the end of the Mayan calendar there that I did. And this is a song just basically going into the Emerald Forest, like the Amazon, like, in the movie Avatar, where you go in and everything's glowing at night. It's just a magical place with all the magical creatures. And that song, you hear all these little sounds of little beings and creatures of the jungle and the forest there. So that's basically what it is. But some of my stuff is even more ethereal. That was more earth based because it's about the forest, but some of my other stuff is just ethereal, and it just takes you up, gives wings to the spirit, and you can soar with the angels. So I invite everybody to come over to harpmagic.com and listen to the samples and peruse around. Also, I wanted to mention that I have a great playlist on Spotify. There's about almost 150 tracks out there in rotation that you can just plug into.
Now, I have to ask you, why did you spend 3 years in a van if you're so talented and you've got connection with the angels? Why wouldn't the angels take better care of you than to let you live in a van and sleep in the forest in a tent?
Good question. Well, that was the angels. Really, I met them at the end of my time in the van. The time. So what happened was when I came to Sedona in 1987. 88, I came here to pursue my artistic visions, because I'm also a stained glass artist, and I really came here to live as an artist. I had decided that this is what I'm called to do. I have to do art. That's what my soul wants, to be creative. So I said, I'm going to come to this artistic town in the Southwest, and this house offered up to me. I set up my glass studio and I started doing my art, and then after a while, I started spending time on the land and journeying out on the land and meditating in the silence. I started hearing my inner voice was telling me, Rob, that something was going to come through me, like a major life shift, a mission upgrade, shall we say. And so I was guided to release all of my material possessions for the most part. I was reading the Carlos Castaneda, the teachings of Don Juan at the time, and Don Juan talked about erasing personal history, one's personal story. And so I just really embraced that. I was guided to release all my possessions, acquire a Volkswagen van that I could sleep in, and because I was going to be guided to go to all these places to discover why I'm here, who I am, and why I'm here. And I was very committed to this. This was like life or death to me. I was very, as I said, guided my whole life of mystical connections through my grandmother, my family, and as a soul traveler. And I was guided that I had to go out into the wilderness, just like, Jesus had to go out into the desert for 40 days into the silent. It's kind of an archetypal thing. This was my hero's journey, like that Joseph Campbell talks about, my mythic journey. So I had to release my attachments to the world. I got a Volkswagen van. I lived with hardly any money. I didn't want to work. And I see a lot of young kids here who are just like I was. They're on their spiritual journey. So that's what I was doing. And I immersed myself into the wilderness outback, into the canyons, and I was fasting, meditating, praying, practicing yoga and internal arts, and connecting with ETs and working with crystals and raising my vibration, doing everything I can to cleanse and heal my physical body and raise my vibration at a cellular DNA level, to activate my ascension codes. And so and then at the end of all that very intense time, that's when the portal opened up and I was taken up into the light and heard the music, and the angels gave me the harp. I had to prepare. There was a lot of preparation.
Oh, wait a sec. Hold on here.
Sure.
The angels gave you the harp, or you bought the harp?
Well, they connected it to me magically through synchronicity. It's funny. I just released my children's book in video format on my YouTube channel. It's called Peter and the Magic Harp. And in the children's book, it was like the angels really gave it to me, and that's what it was like. They really led me to it and revealed that it was my destiny to play it. Because the harp is the most magical instrument in the world. There's no other instrument that is magical as a harp. And it's Merlin the magician played the harp, and King David of Israel played the harp, and Apollo the god played the harp, and you can control the elements with it. It's magical. You can call fairies and unicorns and angels, and it's a mythical instrument. It's found all over the world. In every ancient culture. In ancient Egypt, it was played.
Well, that's because it was simple to make.
Is it simple to make?
Yeah, I said that's because it is simple to make.
Well, maybe back in the day. I mean, they're pretty complex instruments. They have like over 5,000 pounds of string tension.
All right, stand by, Peter. We've got to take our break for this final segment. Exo Nation, Peter Sterling is our guest. harpmagic.com is the website. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 and classic1220.ca.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down at the big lake they call Gitchagumi.
Welcome back, everyone. Peter Sterling is our guest. And Peter, you were saying just before we went to the last break that we took that you were connecting with ETs. Tell us about that.
Well, I've had a lot of experiences over the years here, Rob. And I actually had a really amazing experience back in around 2009. That I kind of went public and shared the story about that on some public outlets. So I've had some amazing experiences with that phenomena over the years.
What were they like? Can you give us an example or share a story or two with us?
I'll tell you a couple that happened just recently.
So they're still happening.
Oh yeah, I see them all the time. So here's the type of phenomena that I see quite a bit lately. So I was out with a friend. It was November 11th. A friend of mine I've known for 15 years. She's a channel. She's very connected to the ET energy herself, and she came to Sedona, and I took her out in my Jeep and took her out to this place called Submarine Rock for sunset. And as we were driving back, just as it was getting dark, a bright light appeared up ahead in front of us in the sky. And I knew that I tuned into it right away. I stopped the car. I said, watch this light. And it was kind of coming at us from the western horizon just after dark. And it was very bright, like brighter than, it almost looked like a plane, but it wasn't flashing. But then it was a bright star, and it flared up very bright. And it was moving towards us, and then it just dimmed out completely and disappeared, and it was gone. And, I see stuff like that all the time. This is, with the naked eyes, we see a lot of it. Now, another thing that just happened here recently, we have this like weekly trance dance out on the rocks with a group of young people, and they go out there with a DJ and they play kind of trancey music and dancing on the rocks at sunset. And this is a very kind of psychedelic group, very open group, very loving. And this, just not too long ago, we were out there, and it was a perfectly blue sky day, not a cloud in the sky. But then all of a sudden, this cloud appeared that was a venticular cloud that was a saucer shaped, and the wind was blowing. And all of a sudden, it appeared over the red rocks, and it stayed for about an hour. It didn't move at all. And it was a saucer shape. It looked like it was a cloaked ship, and everybody was looking at it. And, if you know the channel Bashar, Bashar says his mothership is anchored over Bell Rock, and that's where we are. So a lot of times we see these types of cloud formations. Now, I took a photograph not too long ago, Rob, with some tour clients, and we were up on the rocks. When I was telling about my UFO ET experiences, and they were telling me about theirs. They had some experiences. I took a picture of them with Bell Rock in the background and some clouds. And 3 days later, they sent me this picture that I took on their phone, and they said, look what's over our head. And in the cloud over their head is a saucer-shaped craft directly over Bell Rock that was silhouetted in the cloud, and I adjusted the contrast, and there it was perfectly. It's just undeniable. So I have a lot of, I actually have a collection of photographs that I've taken of these types of ship cloud formations that we see a lot here. If there's one experience that I'll just touch on here, Rob, is the one back in 2009, and it was I was in a ceremony. I was in an ayahuasca ceremony with a shaman with a group of people in LA, and it was 3 a.m, and during a very intense experience in the ceremony, I was taken out of my body. Basically, I was taken up into a craft that took me on board, and there were a couple of gray aliens on the small craft, and they immediately started telepathically communicating to me and telling me that there was something going on. Like when I got on the ship, there were like warning lights going off and like a siren alert, kind of like on the Enterprise when there's an emergency. And I all of a sudden I was like out of my body, and during this ayahuasca experience, I was like traveling through time and space through these technicolor grids of light. And then all of a sudden I popped through something, and I was standing on this craft, and these 2 little ETs were there standing in front of me, and telepathically they said, "Welcome aboard." And I wasn't afraid, but immediately they, I said, "What's going on?" And they said that the galaxy is on high alert. They said there's been an explosion at the center of the galaxy, and that there's a wave of light that is heading our way, and it's going to sweep through our solar system and impact planet Earth sometime in the future. and it was a very intense experience. I was quite shaken by it, but they told me that told me that the galaxies pulsate. They have like a heartbeat, and they said that they explained it to me like the black holes at the center of our spiraling galaxy build up tension and gravity or mass at the center, and it has to release. So rhythmically every so many tens of thousands of years or something, that these pulsations happen, these explosions, and it sends a pulse out through the ecliptic plane of the galaxy.
Now, Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't ayahuasca a drug-induced psychedelic trance?
It comes from the Amazon, and it is a traditional medicine of the Amazon, but it's rich in DMT, which is the most powerful hallucinogen on planet Earth, and it's found everywhere. It's in animals and plants, and we actually make it ourselves. Our pineal pituitary gland creates DMT, and there's certain practices you can do to release DMT like naturally. Like at the time of death, we secrete DMT, and that's part of like kind of the death experience. But yeah, it's very, very powerful.
But why would we need to take all these hallucinogens in order to have these experiences, Peter? It makes no sense to me.
Well, because the human consciousness is very limited in our perceptions. You know, science, Rob, says that most humans are only using about 2 to 3% of their brain capacity, and physicists tell us, Rob, that what we're seeing in the physical world with our perceptual apparatus of sight and sound and touch is only about 10% of what's actually there, because now we're learning about dark matter that we can't even see, and that our perceptions are tuned into a certain spectrum of light, into visible light. We know we have infrared and we have ultraviolet. There's all these light spectrums that we can't see, humans. Just like, dogs can hear those ultra high frequency sounds, but we can't, because our perceptions of sound hearing are very limited. So, part of what this whole planetary transformation and ascension in the golden age is to expand our perception. I mean, this is what needs to happen on planet Earth, because our limited perceptions of the 3D dualistic polarized reality in which we live in, the 3D matrix, is creating all the problems we see in the world. Even Einstein said, we're not going to solve the problems with the same state of mind that created them. We have to have a planetary shift in consciousness for the Great Awakening, and these things are playing a very important role. These plant medicines and different psychedelics that we have now that have become legal now.
But they're
around
not.
the world.
No, they're not legal here in Canada.
Well, in the United States now, we have, for instance, we have psychotherapy-assisted MDMA therapy, and we're very close to legalization of MDA. We have now in Oakland, California, and Denver, we have legal recreational magic mushrooms, and more states are voting on it. And then we have ketamine now. Ketamine is mail order. You can go on a website.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, it's mail order.
So how do we protect kids from all this crap that's infiltrating the market, because it's supposed to be ushering in a new golden age?
Well, I mean, I think I'm more afraid of fentanyl and other things that are killing people. I mean, ketamine
kills as well.
Huh?
Ketamine kills as well.
Not so much. No, not really. I mean, there are some stories of people abusing it to extremes and having bad experiences, but that's what's so amazing. Like, when I researched it, they've given like 100 times the recommended dose of ketamine, and people could come back unscathed from it. So, you have to be careful. You have to work setting, and how you do it is very important, but there's great value in
But
these
why do
things.
But isn't it possible that the use of these hallucinogen and other drugs is just a way for people to escape reality, because they can't face the reality? They go into an alternative world where everything is kumbaya, let's hold hands and make this world a better place, and they say all you need is love. But when they come back, the world is the same.
Well, that's a one way of looking at it, but psychedelics are changing our world. We're in the middle of the next psychedelic revolution, very similar to what occurred in the 1960s. And by the way, Silicon Valley is very psychedelic. Burning Man Festival. You know how many top executives from Silicon Valley are out on the playa of Burning Man, tripping on DMT and ayahuasca?
But in my books, books, that doesn't make it justified.
But no, what it's influencing the technology because they're gaining. See, even let me just touch on this.
You got a minute.
The guy who discovered the DNA molecule, I forgot his name. He was in Oxford in England, and he was on an LSD trip, and he saw the double helix spiraling in front of him in his mind's eye, and that's how he discovered it. Francis Crick discovered DNA. He was high on acid. Just Google it. Okay, so these things unlock doorways into the mind, into the consciousness, into another dimension where we can gain information.
But how many other great discoveries were made without the use of psychedelics and other drugs that for one reason or another people seem to like but are no good for them?
Say the question again, I'm sorry.
I said, what about all these other great discoveries throughout history that were made by people who are not on psychedelic drugs?
Well, I mean, yeah, certainly there's, great sensitive souls that have brought through great art and literature and science naturally, but it doesn't discount the other souls that have, used these sacred substances to access things and to bring things through for humanity. I think at this time, at the 12th hour, when we're close to kind of falling into the precipice, we're kind of have this existential threat of the end of humanity.
Peter, I hate to do this, but we've run out of time for tonight. I want to thank you so much for joining us. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to find out more about our guest tonight, his name is Peter Sterling. His website is harpmagic.com. Well, there you go. Personally, I'm against drugs. I really am. I'm against psychedelic drugs. I'm against recreational drugs. I don't see the need for it. If you want to escape from reality, go ahead. But if you want to solve the problems of the world, in my opinion, you have to do it with a clear head, a sober conscience, and a good heart. I'll be back on the other side of this break as the X-Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220. Don't go away.